Hi, I'm Andy, and this is my lesson on mutator methods in Java. In this lesson, I'll show you how to add mutator methods to a class, methods that change the object's instance variables. I'll also discuss method parameters and how to make an overloaded method. Let's get started. In my previous lesson, I discussed two types of methods you can add to a class. Ones that request information from an object, and ones that request that an object perform an action. The ones that request information from an object are called accessor methods. In the previous lesson, we added several accessor methods to our class. So now we'll focus on methods that request that an object perform an action. Specifically, this lesson will focus on one subset of those action methods called mutator methods, which are methods that tell an object to change one or more of its instance variables, thus changing its state. For example, let's add a method called resize to our class. We call this a mutator method because it will change the object's length and width instance variables. All methods have the same format. They begin with an access modifier. We want to allow outside code to call this method, so we'll use the public access modifier. Then comes the return type. The return type is the data type of the information returned by the method. The resize method is not a request for information. It will not return anything. It will simply change the size of the rectangle. To specify that a method does not return anything, we put void as the return type. In fact, pretty much all mutator methods will have a return type of void since their job is to change or mutate the object, not to get information about the object. Then comes the name of the method. The name of the method should always clearly describe exactly what it does. Resize is a great name for this method since it changes the size of the rectangle. Then comes parentheses and a list of the formal parameters. Remember, parameters hold the information needed by the method to accomplish its task. This method's job is to resize the rectangle. To do so, it needs to be told the rectangle's new length and its new width. So we need two parameters, which we'll call new length and new width. The body of the resize method needs to change the length and width instance variables to their new values, like this. Notice, this method does not have a return statement because its return type is void. This method ends once its closing curly brace is reached. Before testing this method, let's make another version of it. I want a version of the resize method that scales the length and the width by the same factor. So this version will have just one parameter, which we'll call scale factor. And in the body of this version of the resize method, we'll scale both the length and the width by the value stored in scale factor. Since we have multiple versions of the resize method, we say that resize is an overloaded method. Which method body actually executes will depend on the number and type of actual parameters passed when the method is invoked. To see what I mean, let's go over to the main method and make a rectangle. Then, before calling any mutator methods on it, let's print its info. Remember, by just putting the name of the reference variable in a print statement, the toString method will be automatically invoked on that object. After printing the rectangle's information, let's call our resize mutator method. We'll call the version that has passed two doubles in the parameter list. It's the list of actual parameters that determine which of our resize methods actually execute. Since we're passing two doubles here, the method that has two doubles as its formal parameters will execute. Also, notice we don't put an assignment operator, an equal sign, on this line of code. That's because the resize method doesn't return anything, so there's nothing to capture and store into a variable. Then we'll print the rectangle's information again. Lastly, let's resize the rectangle again, this time using the second resize method. To use that method, we need to pass just one double as our parameter. After that, we'll print the rectangle's information for a third time. Okay, let's go ahead and run our program and make sure our rectangle object is correctly changing size. Good, so it looks like both the length and the width were correctly set during each resize command. Before we go, let's try one more thing. Let's try to invoke the resize method without passing any parameters and see what happens. Notice the compiler reported an error. That's because, as the error message indicates, we don't have a version of the resize method that has no parameters. When we call resize, we only have two options. We can either pass one double or we can pass two doubles. And that wraps up this lesson on mutator methods in Java. I'm Andy. Thanks for watching and coding with me today.